Hello, my name is Kate Jones, and I want to show you my ePortfolio for my non-degree certification program for school leadership. So the first thing on the ePortfolio is the artifact folder, and I kind of got artifact folder happy, throwing just about everything I could link in there. So there's quite a few documents that are mostly in other places within the site within the artifact folder. And here we have a video that I made way back in January of 2019 explaining my personal goals. I will tell you that in that video I was very adamant about the fact that I probably did not want to be a principal, instead wanted to be an instructional leader of some sort. I'm still leaning in that direction, though I am a little bit more likely to seek out the idea of being a principal after completing this program. Here's my leadership philosophy. I wrote a dual philosophy, an educational philosophy, and then a leadership philosophy. I had written another one that for some reason I couldn't find during one of my earlier classes, but a lot of my beliefs really stay the same. I'm a very big believer in compassionate learning, and that being a better person for students helps them to learn better. So being someone that they can communicate with, and that they can tell that they're having a bad day, that is going to make them want to learn from me in a more authentic way. So that is a lot of where my philosophy is coming from. One of my other core beliefs is clear lines of communication, being visible within the school, and making sure that I am available to the school community is a major part of that as well. Here is my program of study. You'll notice that I started all the way back in fall 2018, and I did take a break in between, especially during the COVID times, and then decided to come back to finish this past fall. This is one of the reasons why some of my activities are going to be a little separated by time in particular. So for my secondary activities were mostly completed between 2018 and 2021, whereas my secondary and district activities were completed this year. So my resume gives some details to my very interesting path. It was not very interesting for a very long time. In fact, I spent 11 of my 12 teaching years at St Edmond Prep, a co-ed Catholic high school in Brooklyn, New York. I'm from Brooklyn. I lived in Staten Island briefly, and then during the pandemic, my family and I decided that we were going to move to New Jersey. And when I came here, I did find a position within a middle school, but it became a little chaotic with my children and still dealing with some COVID protocols, and I decided that it was easier for me to figure out a way to work from home for the time being. And since then, I've spent my time as a remote instructor, mostly for Fusion Global Academy. Another reason why I had to seek out my district and elementary within the district that I live rather than where I work is because Fusion Global Academy is a private for-profit school, and the leadership within that they're scattered all over, and it doesn't run the same way as a regular school. However, it is a really cool experience. I get to teach students from all around the world, students who are medically fragile in some situations, students who are consistently traveling with their families, or whose parents have to move around a lot for work, and because it's one-to-one, you're able to develop really interesting and awesome relationships with those students. And I'm actually a big fan of how Fusion is able to emulate a school environment, even though it's fully virtual. They have a really cool thing called the Homework Cafe, which is kind of like a study hall, and there's always teachers available there. So that has been a pretty cool and unique experience of mine over the course of the last year. I do have some details here about my experience at St. Edmond, just because I spent so much time there and a lot of my leadership was there. As you'll see in my secondary presentation, I took on a lot of different responsibilities as the IB program coordinator. I joined a lot of committees. I was part of the strategic plan. So I thought it was important to kind of detail some of the things that I did somewhere on my resume, while also detailing my varied abilities. As for the specific activities that I completed as part of this practicum, one of the biggest projects that I had, and that I actually started on earliest and finished last, was the Annotated Bibliography. I went through so many different resources to try to find the best articles to help me answer the questions. And I do believe that I found some good ones. Like any sources, some are brief and extremely helpful, or long and extremely helpful, or brief and kind of useless, and long but kind of useless. So I found a wide variety. Most of them really did help me. I did answer a couple, or find a couple of sources that I thought were extremely helpful, but just for the sake of brevity, looking at the idea of a mission and vision statement, I strongly believe that it is important for a school leader to live by the vision and live by the mission of the school. And one of the things that one of my principals did a few years ago was she had bookmarks made with the mission on it, and we kind of picked out the keywords of the mission. And I thought that that was such a great activity that really showed why the mission and vision are so important to the school. And these articles that I found kind of reinforced my belief about the importance of setting a clear school vision moving into, especially when you're a new school leader. Here we have our activity log form and spreadsheet. What I did was I put everything in order for the practicum and what was necessary for the Fort Hays program. And also some of my extra hours that I have to do for New Jersey are in here as well. So most of these are going to be listed within my slideshows, but I did put some extra things like working on scheduling committees at my older school that I spent a significant amount of time on, and doing other observations that I spent a significant amount of time on in there as well. So the activity component tracker was a major helper in making sure that I was doing everything I was supposed to do per Doc Moody. And I think I got it. I think I did everything that was needed. And I definitely met most of the components throughout, or all of the components and most of the areas throughout. Again, because I've spent so much time in secondary school, more of my hours are in secondary school, even though I did activities in district and elementary as well. So because of my unique work situation, I reached out to the superintendent of the district where I live. I live in a pretty small town in New Jersey called Union Beach, and she agreed to allow me to do my internship activities through her and through our school here. And it was awesome because as someone who just moved to the community about a year ago, I was able to get to know the community a little bit better through this. I was able to understand a little bit more about the inner workings of our community. And I learned quite a bit about things like budget and how important the balance is between the monies coming in and where it can go at different times. So one thing that I wanted to focus on was I was involved in the editing of the board minutes, as well as the analysis of the board minutes. And with this, we were able to focus on the fact that we had to announce budget cuts during this board meeting, that we also were going to probably have to lose some staff members because of our cut budget from New Jersey, and also reviewing some of the policies that were important for understanding the budget and the funding and how all the choices are made. Within that budget review, it was actually really enlightening. I knew to an extent that things like utilities were crazy expensive. I don't know that I realized how expensive. And the superintendent, Mrs. Lewert, and I actually shared some laughs about how expensive the electric bill and the paper bills are, and it was a really cool and enlightening experience. The elementary activities also completed with Mrs. Lewert and Mrs. Savicki. And with this, a lot of it came down to the analysis of benchmarks that had existed already, contributing to a school culture survey, and being a part of the Early Childhood Advisory Committee. So in New Jersey, we are seeing a very large amount of funding being sent our way for early childhood programs because they are trying to expand access to 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. But with that, we are seeing cuts in other areas. So we had to kind of gather some information about how we can help our families in the early childhood program with the funding that we receive from them. As I mentioned earlier, a large part of my career has been spent in secondary education, and one of my many jobs was as the IB program coordinator. And as the IB program coordinator, I was put in charge of our 5-year evaluation, which was a massive undertaking. Part of that was also the writing and the editing of our policies. I felt that this was a pretty direct connection to Standard 2.3, understanding and demonstrating the capacity to model ethical behavior in personal conduct, relationships, and to cultivate ethical behavior in others by creating these policies that I thought were extremely helpful. I linked to the academic honesty policy that I wrote and edited. Here we have administrative verification document, just saying I did what I said I did. And here we have my program reflection, where I came to the conclusion in this over here conjecture stage that my experiences during the practicum have led me to the conclusion that school leaders are capable of truly amazing things, and that while budgets and laws and observations matter quite a bit, the most important thing is a strong and healthy school community. With strong community and family relations, schools can get things done. With that being said, a school leader who has a good relationship with their people may be the most effective leader. And I truly believe that in my soul at this moment, finishing up this activity, that if a school leader has the support of their community, they can do magic. I think that the pandemic showed that in particular. So I'm going to finish with that note, and I thank you so much for your time.